Hi everybody, this is Ms. Smith, and I wanted to talk in this video about obtaining letters of recommendation. Now that's something that actually was not a part of the original video lecture on how to get a job, but it's really important that we discuss this, okay, letters of recommendation. So every semester, without fail, sometime around the last week of class, inevitably, one of my former English 165 students, okay, one of my former students will come to me and will ask me to write a letter of recommendation for them as a part of their portfolio, I believe, for one of the programs that we have on campus, okay? I'm always happy to do it, but here's the problem I face, okay? A lot of times it's a student that I taught several semesters ago, and so since the time I taught that student, I have taught many other students, right? And so sometimes I have to struggle to remember, was that a good student? How did they complete their work? Did they excel at their work? I tend to remember the person, but the details of their work, I don't remember, okay? And another challenge I have is that I have no idea what the student has been up to since I last saw him or her. Okay, I don't know what they've been doing. I don't know if they've won any awards. I don't know if they have been excelling in their classes. I don't know anything. And so a lot of times the student shows up and asks for that recommendation without giving me any information. A lot of times the student will also show up and in requesting that recommendation, either they will just say, can you write a letter of recommendation for me? Or sometimes they will email it to me, Ms. Smith, can you write me a letter of recommendation? Well, the other challenge is I have no idea who the letter is going to. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Um, if I'm writing to a prospective employer for a specific position that that the job seeker is going after, then I need to know that information. I don't have an address. I don't have anything. Right? They just want the letter of recommendation. Okay? And then another thing that is a huge challenge is usually, like I said, the request comes in with a week left of school, and I have no time in the last week of school to actually write this letter of recommendation. The student hasn't given me ample time to do it. Okay? A lot of times it's been where, well, I can pick it up tomorrow from you. If you just write the letter of recommendation from me, I can pick it up tomorrow. So here's what I want to do in this video. I want to point out some things to keep you from making those types of mistakes. Okay? Because you never, never, never want to make a bad impression or leave a bad impression in your effort to ask for a letter of recommendation. Okay? And so the book talks about some specific things. Should you see your letters? Whom should you ask? Before we get to that, let me just tell you some things that I've observed. Things that have also worked for me when I was a job seeker. Okay? In terms of the letter of recommendation, you want to first, before you even get to that point, even now, you want to make sure that you're cultivating solid relationships. Okay? Solid professional relationships. You need to be able to ask someone to speak well of you. And in order for that to happen, you need to have cultivated those professional relationships. Professional being in the workplace, of course, but also academic professional. Okay? That would include your instructors here at the college. That would include even staff that you may have interacted with. Maybe you've had a job on campus, staff that you've worked with or interacted with, and people that you've had an opportunity to maybe volunteer with. All of those things count. All of those things matter. And so you want to make sure that you're cultivating a really good rapport, a really good reputation, that you're building good credibility with individuals so that if you need to ask for a letter of recommendation, then you will have people that you feel comfortable asking that from. right? You want to make sure that you ask for a letter of recommendation from someone who thinks well of you, from someone who knows your work, right, and knows your work ethic, from someone who would be willing to speak well of you, and from someone who is not a personal contact. And so a lot of times the employer will want you to have someone from your job, a former instructor, someone that you've worked with in some professional capacity, to give that letter of recommendation. They don't want your first cousin to give it. Okay? Your first cousin is going to speak well of you, probably, right? They want someone who can, in their eyes, be objective about who you are, and provide a solid recommendation. And so you want to make sure that you're asking the right person. If it's someone that you have had a negative relationship with or conflict with at any point in time, depending on the situation, you may want to rethink asking that person for a letter of recommendation. Now, here's just a general life lesson that we all may have learned by now, okay? When you ask a yes or no question, you should expect a yes or no answer. Makes sense, right? When you ask a yes or no question, you should expect a yes or no answer. So in other words, if you ask someone to write a letter of recommendation for you, the best thing that they can tell you, other than yes, of course, is no, right? Expect for them to say no if they do not feel that they can give you a good recommendation. And that's why I say that that's the best thing they can tell you outside of yes. If a person does not feel that he or she can give you a good, glowing letter of recommendation, it is in your best interest that they just say no. Okay? Because you do not want them to say yes and then write you a negative letter of recommendation. Those things happen all the time. All right? And so, again, make sure you're cultivating good relationships with people so that you hopefully will have people that you can ask to write letters of recommendation for you. And make sure that you, in asking those people, expect them to say yes or no. They may have reasons that you don't know about for saying no. It may not be personal reasons. They just may have a lot going on and they can't do it. And so if they say no, that can be a very good thing, especially if you have a sense that they might write something in that letter that may not reflect well on you. Okay? And so that's a good thing. Now, of course, if they say yes, hopefully it's somebody who will speak well of you, and who will help you, hopefully, look good in front of that prospective employer. And so again, the book talks about whom you should ask. Previous employers, professors, supervisors, people you volunteered with, community leaders, all of those people would be able to offer a good letter of recommendation. Now, another thing I want to point out is that, and I kind of alluded to this before with my opening scenario about students who come and ask me at the last minute for letters of recommendation. You want to remind the reader who you are, and remind the reader of what you've accomplished in the time span since they've interacted with you. So if we look at this example letter, figure 5.3 from the textbook, this person does a really good job with that. Okay? And so the person starts off reminding the reader of how he or she knows him. Okay? I was employed at your store from September 2012 through August 2013. The writer is not just assuming that the reader will remember him or her, right? They're reminding them who they are. During my employment, I worked part-time as a stock clerk and relief cashier, and during the summer, I was a full-time employee in the produce department, helping to fill in while Bill Dirksen and Vivian Ho were on vacation. Okay, so good information there. And so in these next paragraphs, the writer emphasizes skills learned on the job, and diplomatically request a strong letter of recommendation. Would you be willing to write an enthusiastic letter of recommendation for me, describing what you regard as my greatest strengths as one of your employees? Having your endorsement would be a great help to me, for which I would be grateful. Okay? And you want to explain how the letter will be used. To assist you, I can send you a letter of recommendation form from the placement office at Moraine Valley. Your letter will then become part of my permanent placement file. So sometimes the prospective employer will give the job seeker a form and ask the individual to fill it out, like a checklist, right? Rate this person from numbers 1 to 5, check off these things, sign your name, put your contact information, and that's that. Sometimes the prospective employer will ask for an actual letter for the individual to write about the job seeker, okay? All of that is a part of this conversation. All right. And then you want to end, of course, in some type of a goodwill manner. And you want to make sure, this is really important, you want to make sure that you enclose your resume. Again, you want that individual that you're seeking the letter of recommendation from to remember you and to understand what you've been up to. And your resume should provide an overview of that. Your resume should indicate what you've accomplished, what you've done, what you've been up to. If you have been a student in my course a couple of semesters ago and now you've earned your degree, and now you're working in your field, or you're working somewhere and you're trying to get into your field, your resume should reflect that. It should bring me up to speed. It should bring the reader up to speed in terms of who you are, and what it is you want to do. Okay? And so make sure that you give the person that you're seeking the letter of recommendation from the information that he or she needs so that they can remember you and write a solid and enthusiastic letter of recommendation for you. And by all means, give them ample time. It is rude and it is not going to look good on you if you give someone a letter and you ask them to get it back to you within a day or two. That's not going to be very considerate, and that's going to diminish your credibility. You want to give at least 2 weeks, okay, for them to be able to find the time to write your letter of recommendation, okay, or to fill out that form for you. And so you definitely want to do that. You always want to, of course, ask their permission. You never want to just go forth and put someone's name down as a reference for you without asking their permission first. We'll talk more about this when we talk about the resume, how to create resumes, professional resumes. And so hopefully this video about letters of recommendation has been helpful. And if you have questions, please let me know.